Meta today launched Threads, an app designed as a direct rival to Twitter, ramping up the rivalry between billionaires Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. On Threads, people can post text and links and reply or repost messages from others. Threads is perhaps the biggest challenger yet to Elon Musk-owned Twitter, which has seen a series of potential competitors emerge, but not yet replace one of the social media's most iconic companies, despite its struggles, which have been reported on a lot. In the first response since the launch of Zuckerberg's new offering, Musk seemed to suggest that Threads is a replica of Twitter. Is it? And where is it really headed? Well, we've got a fantastic panel, but first I'm joined by Matt Navarra. He's a former digital communications advisor to the UK government. He's also one of the best-known social media commentators, critics anywhere. Thanks, Matt. Great to have you on board. So I thought it would be quite interesting to go through a couple of basic questions and then sort of see what your answers to that are. So the first question, and I think everybody wants to know this, will Threads challenge Twitter's dominance?
I think it will. I think this is the first app that's come up, or a platform that's come out, that's going to really challenge Elon Musk and Twitter. It's got the brilliance of linking it to Instagram, which will help bring in a lot of people, a lot of users very quickly, and people will go to Threads and find a lot of people that they know and brands and creators that they like already there. And it also has the familiarity of Twitter. So for people who are looking for something that's like Twitter, but it isn't Twitter because they're fed up with how Twitter is performing or what Elon Musk is doing, they will now have a new place to go. So I think that there's great opportunity for them. And I think for Meta, it's low-hanging fruit for them to build something like this.
Is Threads more user-friendly than Twitter, at least at the moment?
Well, at the moment, it's very similar. There are the core features you would expect in terms of replying and reposting or retweeting, as you would call it, on Twitter, and all of the other things like attaching images or video. That's all there, and it all looks very similar to Twitter. There are things that are missing. It doesn't have hashtags. Its search features are not particularly good. It doesn't have a trending page, and you can't sort things chronologically, amongst many other things. But generally, it's a very good start for Meta, I think.
Is Twitter on the decline after Musk's takeover?
Well, it's going through spiraling downwards, I think, is what we would say at the moment in terms of people's satisfaction. It depends. If you're a supporter or somebody that likes Elon Musk, you might find that Twitter is perfect for you. But I think for the core users that have been there for a long time, I think the policy changes and the bugginess of the platform and the fact that a lot of the people that used to be there are not as active as they were are things that make people unhappy with Twitter. So I think it is struggling at the moment.
Is Twitter better suited to news?
Well, at the moment, probably yes, because it was built around that, or at least it became to be known for the real-time social media and news, and it's set up for that very well, and people expect that from it. And I think at the moment we're waiting to see with Threads if the features and the algorithm and the way that you view content on there is going to allow it to be a platform for news. But from what I can see, there's no reason why news publishers will not be able to make a new home there if they wanted to.
Why has Meta not launched Threads in the European Union?
Well, in the EU, there is rules called GDPR to do with data privacy and getting permissions for people for them to use people's data. And at the moment, the way that Threads is set up through Instagram, it doesn't have doesn't meet the criteria or the regulatory requirements it has to. So for the time being, people in the EU can't access it. And of course, the UK isn't part of the EU, so it's separate. So the UK users do get to have access to the app for now, but it may well change, but it's going to take some time for them to fix that, I think.
So takedown requests versus freedom of speech, will Threads be quote unquote safer than Twitter? And I think that's relevant, from us over here in India, where troll attacks and just rubbish on Twitter seems to dominate commentary so often. So therefore I use the word safer. It may not be the most appropriate term, but you know what I'm trying to hint at here.
Yeah, I think that we'll find it, and that there will inevitably quite quickly be spam and bots and trolls and all the things you expect on all social platforms. But Meta is geared up for that, I think, with the technology it uses across all of its platforms, and it's able to build upon that. I think that we'll still see the sort of toxic social media content that we see on all social platforms. But if you're making a comparison with Twitter and Meta's Threads, I think that there's a good potential that it'll feel a little bit safer and it'll feel a little bit less toxic. but I think that's going to take time to see how much better or worse it will be. But I think it will work out better than Twitter at the moment.
There's one concern that Threads collects intrusive personal data. What is your reading on that?
Well, it's true. Meta and the Threads collects a lot of data about its users, and it's clear. Well, it's clear in its terms and conditions for that, as much as any of the social media apps are. TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, they're all using our data in similar ways, some more so than others. And yet we all know this, and many people are still using all of these apps. So I don't think this is going to make a great deal of difference to people, because if they were concerned about Threads taking a lot of their data or using a lot of their data, then they would also probably choose not to use TikTok or Twitter, which does much the same. So I'm not so sure that that's going to be as big an issue as maybe people think, but it is still a concern for people who want to keep privacy, I think.
Twitter has faced lots of issues in India, certainly in other countries as well, with regard to takedown requests. And that's been controversial because it pits freedom of speech, which I alluded to earlier on. But do you believe that this might actually be another challenge, particularly in several governments across the country who are worried about safety? How they define safety, of course, is sometimes controversial. But Threads is going to have to deal with the same set of concerns that Twitter has had to deal with.
They are. They're going to have to tackle the same problems, and they're going to have to respond and react to the laws of the land in any country it operates in, and they will probably act and behave in much the way they do in other countries it operates. And so they will have to abide by those rules and policies or face the actions of any regulator in the countries it operates. So I'm sure that it will comply where it needs to comply, but it will also, I'm sure, challenge back the things where it doesn't believe it's a moderation that needs to take place. And it's a delicate balance, but this is what social networks have had to deal with for years, and nothing has changed today by the launching of Threads.
Is there anything that you've seen which leads you to believe that the architecture of Threads would ensure that there are fewer bots and trolls?
It's too early to say how effective Meta's moderation tools are going to be. I've certainly seen on Threads already there is spam there, and there is kind of content that maybe is not ideal or they wouldn't want there, but no more than any other platform that we're using at the moment. But I think we will see, as more people come on board the platform, that will increase, and then we'll get an idea of how effective the moderation tools are. But if we look at Instagram and we look at Facebook and see how that looks, we probably can make a judgment as to how effective it will be, because it's going to be using a lot of the same technology.
How important is Threads for Meta?
I think it's, as I said at the beginning, low-hanging fruit. This is a great opportunity. Elon Musk has handed this to them on a plate, really, with the behavior he's made. He's been showing with Twitter and the changes he's made. I think that there is every chance that this will be around in a year from now. I think that the question will be, can Meta transform a platform that was a text-based platform that only had 200 or 300 million users for Twitter? Can they make it more mainstream and appeal to people beyond those that are typical users of Twitter? And if they can do that, then a year from now, we could be seeing another platform that could make them a significant amount of revenue from advertising and from other monetization options and features that they put in place.
Matt, wonderful speaking to you. Thank you so much for being with us. Thanks very much indeed. Well, we're going to continue this conversation. We've got Aprameya Radhakrishnan, the co-founder and CEO of Koo. We've got Manish Maheshwari, the co-founder of Sanori. We've got Pankaj Mishra, co-founder of Factor Daily, and NS Napinai, the founder of Cybersecurity Foundation. So I'm the only one who's not founded anything, and I don't think I ever will. So I'm rather intimidated by this group over here. But Aprameya, let me come to you first. What are your thoughts on Threads? I mean, there's huge excitement over here. There's been a bit of snark, between Meta and Threads already and their respective owners. So where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think, the kind of excitement that is there for a Meta product is something that was expected, I guess, if not more, at least this much excitement would happen if Meta launched a product. But what I see is, it definitely is a threat to the English world of Twitter, because, they're borrowing from their Instagram network. So Instagram is also heavily, English oriented, and it doesn't have too much of text. What will be challenging is the fact that they're borrowing from a lifestyle platform, which is Instagram. So the mood is to share what I'm eating, where I'm going, who I'm hanging out with, what I'm wearing, right? So that behavior, that network has been replicated now. And whether you can expect thoughts and opinions from the same creators and the same network is yet to be seen. So will they become a very different platform altogether, which will be of value, or will they be able to convert that behavior into sharing thoughts and opinions is yet to be seen, right? But as far as we are concerned, so we exist because we are a lot more inclusive than Twitter. So we include languages. So I don't see Threads as a platform that will include languages from the way they're operating right now. So I think we definitely continue on our own path of more inclusion of people who speak languages and building for the rest of the world.
Just speaking up, Ramey, about Ku a little bit more. You've got a very strong India identity. Is that what you are rooting on for your future, as opposed to, let's say, a Threads which is truly international?
Yeah, so I think it's not just India, but a lot of countries across the world actually have problems with global tech and global social media. They want lesser interference with their data. They want lesser interference with things that are happening in their own local country. So what we've built for India is what we want to take to every other country. It's almost like social media as a service to every country, so that they can have a local social media that doesn't threaten to stop operating if things don't go well between countries, right? So use the global social media, but also have a local alternative at all points in time, and who is the one that will provide that for every country?
Manish, what is at stake for Twitter? What is at stake for Meta?
There's a lot at stake for Twitter. First of all, it's a fun time. I think it's exciting to see something like this get launched. And my view is that, yes, it's a serious threat to Twitter, particularly at a time when they're quite distracted. And also at a time where Twitter has, out of its own choice, started focusing a lot more on monetization and not so much on user and reach, right? User growth and reach. So something like this getting launched at a time like this is a serious threat to their global dominance and reach when it comes to public conversation. So that's one. Now, how does it pan out, right? So my view is the following, right? Clearly, because of the Instagram easy access to all the users, the initial few months would be very steep curve in terms of user growth, right? What remains to be seen is that do people still hang out there, and do they still engage in conversation, and does things really change from there on? Because don't forget, right? Google also launched something called Google Plus several years ago to compete with Meta or Facebook in those days, right? And they were not successful. So just because Meta is launching this, that doesn't mean it will be successful all the time, but it does have a very good head start. The question would be, context does matter, right? When you go to Instagram, the context is picture first. So the kind of people there on Instagram are probably trying to share their personal life in a visual format, right? And you're expecting the same people to come to Thread and start becoming textual and start sharing ideas and opinion. That may or may not happen. It may happen with some people, but you will have to instigate that. You'll have to cause people to do that. You will have to have journalists like yourself be on Thread and start breaking news. Will that happen quickly? We don't know that, right? And so that's why the fun part is there, that it's a serious threat. And the other key difference here is that it's going to be an open platform. I was looking at the terms of service. They're talking about something called Fediverse, which is basically saying that Thread would be one version of it, but it would be an open protocol. So anyone else can also launch and have their own server in a decentralized fashion that would interoperate or connect with what Thread is doing. So they're also, in a way, going after the idea that Jack originally had about Blue Sky, which is open protocol. And in this case, Instagram gives them a head start, and they are now building an open protocol based off that. So strategically, they have gotten it right. They have a very good thinking on this one, but execution matters, and also the follow through matters. So we'll have to wait and watch how that happens.
Pankaj, what I found interesting, because I set up my own Threads account today. Hint to all of you people, please sign on. But moving on from that, I found it quite interesting that in the case of Instagram, you have your picture first and then you describe it, whereas over here, you write something and then you attach a video or you attach a picture. But the easy linkage between a photograph or video on Instagram, right? The fact that you can directly sort of share it over here on on this new platform it is a huge attraction, isn't it, for people who choose to do more than just post a picture?
It is a huge attraction. And Vishnu, I think this battle for the new age Chaupal is becoming very fascinating if you look at it. And one of the things Manish was talking about is very, very important, which is the openness of threads. Now, I mean, notwithstanding all the reputation that Meta has when it comes to these issues, but I mean, they are saying that you can actually take your audience when you leave the app, and also the Mastodon integration. So I think it illustrates the birth of a new age social media platform in this age where a lot of users value these things. And they're doing this because they also want to attract the creator community on a platform like Twitter. And I think that is going to be very, very exciting. But I think I'm going to watch more closely what Twitter does, because so far we have been seeing erratic, sometimes foolish changes at Twitter by Elon Musk. Now, this is the first time Twitter has a serious rival. I mean, let's not forget what happened to Clubhouse, and it was touted as one of the biggest things out there.
Yep.
But now you have a mainstream rival, and people say you are as good as your rival. So I'm more interested in watching what Elon and Twitter do, because that is where the spotlight is.
NS Napinai, what are your concerns from a cybersecurity standpoint? Manish, I'll come to you in a second.
Thank you for making this statement itself about concerns, and you're right. Apart from the fact that, when I looked at threads, the first thing that caught my eye as a Tamilian is the use of the word coup. So I would say this is not just Twitter versus threads, but also Twitter versus threads versus coup here. But the real concern that I have is, on one hand, the linking with Instagram is the positive aspect in terms of a business sense for Meta. But the same linking is likely to raise the first concern, which is with respect to not just data protection, but also the enhanced risk of the linking of two different platforms, and possibly 4 different platforms now, and the kind of data integration and analysis that it opens itself out to. Because you already had a triangulation between Meta platform, as in Facebook earlier, and Instagram and WhatsApp. And now you have threads added to it. So that does cause a serious concern, or red flags it for me, with respect to the kind of data that is going to be collected, the kind of data that's going to be integrated, and how it is going to affect profiling aspects. Apart from that is the fact that, we have the announcement yesterday about the DPDP. We are still waiting with bated breath for the draft. And my concern primarily is the main issue that you have with the EU GDPR is the right to opt out.
Sure.
If Threads is keeping itself out of EU, and we are still waiting to see whether India is going to give us that opt out and still have the right to use the service. And if Threads is keeping away from EU, what is it going to do with respect to India, considering that it's clearly pitching itself for the Indian audience, right? So basically, everything boils down to data to me, to begin with. But the rest of the issues will be in terms of what has Meta done to take into account the fact of all those reports about toxic Twitter usage.
Yep.
And has it put in place protective or preventive measures? Because you don't really have enough information in public with respect to the same.
Yeah. Manish, you had a point. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of good points got made, right? So I just want to make a couple of other points, right? One is about, we have to think about how this will take off, and I'll tell you the advantage versus disadvantage, and also the whole point about toxicity and moderation. So let's talk about that as well. So in terms of takeoff, right? I mean, the advantage of it being linked with Insta is that you avoid the empty house effect, right? When you go into thread, right away, I found my friends, I started interacting with them. Very good experience. First use experience is very good, and I loved it, right? The downside is that when I'm talking on thread, I have the overhang of Instagram. So I'm thinking visual first or picture first, right? So for me to switch to like text first, was a bit of a challenge. And secondly, clearly they will have to get their engineering right in terms of like, how do you look at trending stuff and how do you start breaking news? How do you make it more raw and authentic? And the other thing is also that the Twitter thing works because it allows anonymity and pseudonymity, and it allows people to sort of latch on to like conversations happening, right? So that has to also be solved for, right? Now, when it comes to moderation, etc., clearly, if this takes off, it will start running into similar problem because words actually are far more controversial than pictures, right? So if you look at Instagram, yes, there are a lot of controversial stuff and content there, but because it is visual, it doesn't have the same level of toxicity that you see on a text-based platform, right?
Yeah.
So clearly, this would be something they'll have to deal with in a very different fashion. But the parent company, Meta, also has Facebook, so have dealt with that problem. So I'm sure they have expertise in that, and they will have to bring it to bear. So we'll have to see how that evolves. The other thing they have done smartly is that to avoid any kind of central regulation or government control, they have tried to do it in a decentralized format, right? So my view would be that if everything is under thread, then there is a problem. But they sort of start one server and allow people to have multiple servers and don't have direct control, but enable interaction between servers on a protocol level, then they can always say that, okay, it's happening on someone else's server and I don't have
so you
control.
can bypass,
that will allow them to avoid those regulatory stuff. So they're also trying to be smart in terms of like, if this gets very big, how do I ensure that I do have the head start, but I'm not subject to the same level of control that a central authority can control a centrally run system. So that's also another smart thing they have at least thought about it. So I mean, I'm quite fascinated. I've been trying it for a day now, and I'm trying to uncover many things. And I think the interface actually is a exact copy of Twitter, right? The reposting.
Yeah, no,
and
it's exactly what you're used to using.
Exactly.
So that is, I mean, it is interesting. Look, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. It is absolutely fascinating. We've got Coup here in India doing so well. And of course, Twitter is something that we've all, in a sense, been brought up with. But now you've got Threads as well, which is not quite the same, but it is similar. Are we going to be having a conversation like this 1 year later? Is this a real coup as far as Threads is concerned? I think that's what we're going to have to find out as well. Aprameya, we'll come back to you later on, but I'm out of time. It's time for this short break.